Hey guys, another video for our Japan-glish playlist. And there's actually no Japan-glish in this video, oddly enough. It's just an explanation. Every time we make a Japan-glish video, there will be some people who don't like it. They'll dislike the video, quite a few people do that. And also they'll leave comments, sometimes quite aggressive comments. You shouldn't make fun of Japanese people for their bad English and things like that. Interestingly, almost always not Japanese people. So it's pretty rare for a Japanese person to complain about the Japan-glish videos, even though a lot of Japanese people watch our videos. Usually it's people from other countries. You shouldn't laugh at Japanese people for trying to speak English, and you know, Japanese people don't have to speak English. Their language is Japanese. So just want to address that. So it might make those people who are angry less angry, maybe or maybe not. And it also might make some other people feel more comfortable with laughing at the Japan-glish, right? So first of all is, we never say in any video that Japanese people should learn English. We never say that. The Japanese government say that, and some Japanese business people say that, and just some Japanese citizens say that Japanese people should improve their English. We never say it, because we agree with that comment that the language in Japan is Japanese, so there's no need for Japanese people to learn English if they don't want to. We totally accept all that, we totally agree with all that. That's never been a point. So that's the first point. We don't say Japanese people should learn English. The other thing is, we're not laughing at individuals. You know, we're not taking video of some guy at a party somewhere trying to speak English and saying, "Hey, listen how bad this guy's English is." We're not doing that. We've never done that, and we'll never do that. Because, you know, that wouldn't be right, would it? And speaking as somebody whose Japanese is pretty bad, I mean, my own Japanese grammar and vocabulary is pretty weak, so, you know, and incidentally, while we're on that, I get laughed at quite often. Kids and old people are the first ones to laugh, usually, if I make a mistake in Japanese, but other people will too. Some people are polite enough to contain themselves or realise that it might offend me if they laugh, so some people contain themselves, but lots of people don't, because they don't sort of see a problem with laughing at if I make a mistake, and I don't see a problem with it either. You know, I'll just tell you one just to break the ice. When I first met my wife and we first started going out together, I hadn't been in Japan for very long, and my Japanese was even worse than it is now. Actually, I was a real beginner when I first met her, and it's still common. You know, even in English we do this. Sometimes we mess up words, you know, and one day she was smelling really nice, and I wanted to say to her, "You smell like flowers," right? So the plan was to say, "You smell like flowers," and the Japanese word for flower is hana, right? Instead of that, I told her that she smelled like fish. Now, the Japanese word for fish is sakana, which is really different from hana, right? But when you're a beginner, a mistake like that's easy to make, and I still make mistakes, you know, just say the wrong word, you know, we all do that, don't we, sometimes? So, and when I do make a mistake, people laugh their asses off here, they really do. Another thing people quite often do is when I say something in Japanese, they'll often repeat it. So maybe my pronunciation was a bit strange, or maybe the grammar was a bit strange or something, and they'll repeat it exactly as I said it, and it's sort of, they're not correcting me, they're just sort of, it's sort of a novelty for them, right? It's like, you know, if you hear a funny word and you sort of repeat it back as you're thinking about it, or as you're absorbing it, you know, it's sort of like that. Quite often they're interested that there's a foreigner speaking English to them. It might be, for some people, it might be the first time they've ever been face to face with a foreigner speaking English. But this is getting off the point. But it is an important point to know that Japanese people will laugh in your face if you make a mistake when you speak Japanese. But there's no bad intention, right? Now, I'm not saying that we should do the same thing when Japanese people try to speak English. I think that's not polite, and I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't make a video showing you guys somebody struggling to speak English either. If you watch our interview videos, there's lots of people on there that are Japanese people speaking English to different levels of competency, and they're treated with total respect. And that should be the way it should be, right? Because I don't think laughing at people for trying to speak a second language is a polite thing to do, right? So now we've qualified that. again, in our Japan-glish videos, you never see an individual speaking Japanese. Speaking English. What you see is stuff written usually by companies, right? It's on trucks, it's on T-shirts, it's on menus, it's on signs. Oh, pussycat! Oh dear! And it's sorry about that, guys. But that's what you see. That's what Japan-glish is, right? It's companies that have used English usually for decoration, right? And this is what we've pointed out before. When they're writing for decoration, yeah, usually if they're writing for communication, they use Japanese. And a classic example of that is on the radio. You know, you'll hear them say, on the television too, news and weather, right? News and weather, and then the rest of it's in Japanese. And so the written English is like that too. You'll sometimes see on a menu, for example, drinks written in English, and then underneath the drink menu, all in Japanese, no English at all. So the English, it's sort of used, it's purely for decoration and to look cool. And it's like those slogans that we show you on T-shirts or on trucks or on signs. It's only for decoration. They don't care. They don't care. Because the other thing that people sometimes say on Japan-glish videos, why don't you contact these companies and tell them that they've got it wrong? Or why don't they do an internet search before they print it on their truck and check that it's correct? Or why don't they ask a native speaker if it's correct before they print it on their truck? And it's just, they don't care. They're not doing it to get the English correct, and they're not doing it to communicate anything to people. They're just doing it just for decoration. So they write some sentence, I carry all things carefully, you might have seen on a video recently written on the side of a truck. It's sort of, you sort of get the idea. And that's sort of what it is, the Japan-glish is. There's sometimes a word in there, you know, for your fitness life. Okay, so Japanese people read that and they sort of get it. Oh, okay, so this drink, if I drink it, it's good for my health, right? So it's got written on it, for my fitness, for your fitness life, right? So they don't care if it's weird English, if the grammar's wrong, and they don't care if we laugh our asses off about it, because they don't care. And if you sent them an email and said, do you know that thing written on the side of your truck is totally wrong, they wouldn't care, right? If we sent them a video showing our Japan-glish video of us laughing our asses off at some funny thing they've written on a T-shirt, they wouldn't care. They don't care, right? They don't care. You know, and that's the other thing to keep in mind as well. We're not offending anybody because they don't care. You know, so it's okay to laugh at it. And just another thing before we go on with this too, is Japanese television. It's quite common to come across it on Japanese television. I've seen it lots of times over the years. I don't watch a lot of Japanese TV, but some people in our house do. And if something comes up like this, they might say, hey, come look at this, you know. And what they'll do is they'll find just on variety TV, you know, they might do a story on funny kanji tattoos. You know, there's a boom outside Japan. It's popular for foreign people to have kanji tattoos, you know, and they'll find ones that have just gone wrong. We actually saw one in a movie once. It was a movie years ago on a train. Can't remember what it was, but the female actress had a tattoo on the back of her neck, and when at one stage it was quite clear on the screen, so we paused it, had a look at it, and don't know what it was supposed to say, but what it said was cheap. Yasui, which is cheap, right? So no idea what she thought it meant, or what the tattooist was trying to write, but it said cheap. Now that sort of stuff, they'll do stories like that on Japanese TV sometimes and say, have a look at these tattoos these foreigners have got and what it says, you know, and something they think is cool. Look, we know somebody, just between us, we know somebody in Australia who named their son Ronin, right? Ronin. And quite proudly told me, you know, we called our son Ronin because it means masterless samurai, right? And she was quite proud of that, that she'd named her son Ronin, right? And to Western thinking, a masterless samurai gives a really cool image, doesn't it, you know? However, to Japanese people, samurai means one who serves. So the whole thing about the samurai was that they were these noble warriors that fought for their lord, you know, they fought for their boss. And that was the whole thing about being a samurai. So to be a masterless samurai You know, one who serves without somebody to serve wasn't particularly admired at the time. And then in modern times, if they call someone Ronin, it usually means somebody who's finished high school and hasn't gone to university. Or somebody who's finished university and hasn't got a job, or it's sort of like loser. Not really, but not directly. That's not the direct translation, but it's sort of the image they have. Oh, he's Ronin, right? So he's finished high school, he hasn't got into a university, he's sort of a loser, right? He's sort of got no meaning in life, you know. He's Ronin. So she's quite proudly told me that she named her son Ronin, right? So that'd be the sort of stuff, they'd laugh at that on Japanese TV. You know, they do stories about the kanji tattoos. They do stories about other examples of foreigners speaking Japanese, and quite often they like to interview foreigners on the street. We talked about this before, you know, on the street in Japan, and ask them questions. What do you think of Japan? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And if a foreigner speaks Japanese badly, they'll often go back to the studio, and the people in the studio are laughing their asses off. Right? They don't because see, as we've mentioned before, political correctness doesn't exist in Japan. So they're not being careful about offending somebody because they don't think like that. They just, you know, if some foreigner's trying to speak Japanese and it's got a really bad accent and speaking it really badly, they just laugh. And and in actual fact, face to face with someone else, probably if you laughed, if a Japanese person was trying to speak English and you laughed, they would probably laugh with you, probably. You know, it's just a bit of a cultural difference. But again, the points are that we don't laugh at individuals for trying to speak English, and we don't think Japanese people should have to speak English. We're laughing at what the corporations produce on their menus and on their t-shirts and on their trucks and everything else. We're laughing at the corporate thing. And that is the same thing that Japanese television does to Westerners. You know, I've seen stories before where some Japanese guy in America, you know, with NHK TV, you know, a film crew in America is doing stories on various things in America, and will show some kanji written on a sign or some kanji written on something, and everybody has a good laugh at that. You know, so that's exactly what we're doing. So it's just, there's no reason to feel bad about it, you know, there's no reason to get defensive about it. They don't care. They don't care that the English is wrong. They don't care that we laugh at it. They don't. They just don't care. You know, they're not interested. They're not interested. It's just decoration, you know. It's not like they're trying really hard. If they were trying really hard to get the English right, and then we laughed at it, they might feel bad. But they're not. They're not trying hard to get it right. They're just writing. A lot of the t-shirt stuff is just, we call it English nabe. So nabe is like a stew, right? And we often see t-shirts and someone says, what's this say? And I'll just say to them, it's ego no nabe, right? English stew, because they've just basically thrown a whole bunch of English words onto a t-shirt randomly that don't sort of mean much. I actually saw a kid once, a kid about 8 years old, who had a t-shirt with just random English words all over it, and then down under her armpit in quite big letters was the 4-letter word starting with F in really big letters, right? Just straight across the bottom of a t-shirt. So whether somebody who knew what that meant was having a bit of a giggle putting that on a t-shirt, a kid's t-shirt with all this other random English, but again, nobody had noticed and nobody had know. I didn't say anything. And see, this is the other thing too, you know, I don't face to face with other Japanese people go, ha ha ha, how useless everybody is at English, you know. That wouldn't be cool, would it? It just wouldn't be cool. However, the people in our family get it, because quite often when we go shopping, sometimes there's some cheap shops that sell cheap t-shirts and things. And my wife, if she finds a t-shirt she likes, will hold it up to me to get me to check it. Because we had a friend once, 20-year-old girl, who was the sweetest, most innocent, sweet, lovely girl, and she bought a t-shirt and turned up at this place and she had it written in big letters across the chest that said, sleazy. Right? Oh no! So my wife's fully aware of it because, you know, we take lots of video of stuff like that. And so we'll be shopping and she'll hold up a t-shirt, say, is it okay? And I'll just check it and make sure there's nothing too embarrassing on it. And quite often it's just that nabe stuff, it's just that random word thing, and I'll say, no, it's all right, doesn't mean anything. Or sometimes the meaning's good, you know, health and happiness or something like that, you know, it's fine, that's fine. Or sometimes it's just odd, doesn't have any meaning at all, you know. So I just check it, make sure it doesn't say anything embarrassing. Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. So they get it, you know. We'll be walking through a shopping centre and I'll go, oh, wait a minute, have to take a video of this sign, wait a minute, you know, let's nunny, right? Let's get happy life. Oh, wait a minute, got to take a video of that. So yeah, look, don't feel bad, you know, no need to get defensive about it, no need to get upset about it. I fully understand. I think we had one of our regular viewers this week get a bit upset about it, and I think English is his second language. And keep in mind, I live in a country where the language is my second language, right? So I fully empathise with anybody who's struggling to speak English and struggling to get their English right. I fully empathise with that. As a person who lives in a country where Japanese, you know, the first language in this country is my second language, Japanese is my second language, and my grammar and my vocabulary is terrible, and my pronunciation. So, you know, I totally understand what that is like. So that's why I wouldn't laugh in someone's face who was trying to speak English, because, you know, I totally understand how hard it is to speak a second language, you know. Quite often, people who are offensive about people trying to learn a second language, often, it's people who don't speak a second language themselves. And I experienced that a lot in Japan. You get a old Japanese guy who only speaks Japanese, doesn't speak any English at all. Sometimes some of those people, or not just an old guy, anybody who doesn't speak a second language and doesn't know how difficult it is, they can be quite not understanding sometimes. Also, we've had Australian friends and family visit who don't speak a second language, and they don't understand how important it is when you're speaking to a Japanese person who speaks English to speak slowly and carefully, because they don't understand the second language thing either, you know. But as a person living in Japan whose second language is Japanese, I totally understand it and have total empathy and respect for anybody who's speaking a second language, whatever it may be, you know. So anyway, that's more than enough of that. Don't feel bad about the Japan-glish videos, they're okay. There's nothing wrong with them. It's okay to laugh. Nobody's offended by them, okay? I promise you. Okay. And if they are, no idea why. That's their choice. So there's always going to be somebody offended by whatever you do, isn't there? Can't do much about that. As long as we think we're being reasonable, can't do anything about it, can we? Anyway, that's enough of that. More videos coming soon.